So I guess you've noticed by now there's somebody missing up here today. Pastor Mary is away with her family. Her father passed away earlier this week, and so she's with her family, having time with them back home in Pennsylvania. So, however, we're going to continue on with the discussion today about where we've seen Jesus. And so we have a couple friends here that are going to share with us today. First of all, I'd like to invite Gail Nathan up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Gail Nathan. A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Mary asked me, have I ever seen Jesus in anyone? I thought, well, yeah, I have, quite a few times. And I told her this one story. I'm an attorney. Don't hold that against me. I started my career as a public defender in Suffolk County, New York, and in the criminal division. And this one woman really tells our story today. Her name is Patricia, and I met her when she was curled up in a ball outside the courtroom, and she had a few charges, drug charges, prostitution, loitering, and she was a mess, dirty hair, dirty face, dirty fingernails, and misery just emanated from her. And I said, what do you want to do with your charges? And so she couldn't even talk, really. She was in the depths of her addiction. And she handed me a piece of paper, and there were like 20 more charges on the piece of paper. And she's like, just get them all together in one courtroom for me. So I would meet her every couple of weeks, and we would, because the charges were all over the courthouse in all different courtrooms. It was a pretty big courthouse. So we'd pull them all into one courtroom, and she'd be outside the courtroom. Sometimes she'd be inside the courtroom just balled up, and, she'd be crossing off the charges as we got them all into one courtroom. And, now I think of her, the metaphor is she was in her own cave of addiction, But I think she saw some crack of light coming in through that cave. And she followed that crack of light, and she told me that her end game was to be sentenced to this one-year program to recover from her drug addiction. And so we eventually got all her charges in one courtroom, and she, we pled out to what we needed to plead out to, and she got sentenced to complete this program. And about a little over a year later, I was called up to the reception area of the office, and she was outside the room, and I didn't even recognize her. She was standing straight. She was glowing. She was glowing. There was the light of Jesus was there. The hope, the love, everything that he brings to us was just flowing from her. She was a miracle standing there. She was just a miracle. She'd finished her program. She had several children. She was reunited with her children. Not sure about the husband. She was reunited with her children. And she had the whole world opened up to her again. So that's my story of seeing Jesus in someone. She found Jesus in her program, in her life, and she was walking with Jesus from that point forward. So that's my story. And I think Paul has a story to tell as well. Paul Hewitt.
Well, good morning. This is really funny sounding. It's muffled and weird up here. But it's wonderful to see everybody. It's been so long that we've been apart, and it's just great to be together. When Pastor Mary said, would you talk about when you've seen Jesus? And I would think of that, when have I truly experienced the presence of God in my life? When have I felt so moved by that, that it's had a change in me? And I thought, well, probably the first time was when my first child was born. And that was an amazing experience. Truly, I never experienced the love of God like that before in my life. And then I thought about all the times that I've seen people do things for others in the love of Jesus and expressing it in their actions toward others, like many of you in this church have done so often. But really what I thought I would share today with you is a real, very personal experience. And I shared this experience with you in a sermon about 3 years ago. But if it's like most sermons, you probably don't remember. And so I think I can give this story again to you, and this experience that I had that really had an impact on my life. It was in September of 2012, and I had to go in the hospital for a fairly routine type of thing. And they took a chest x-ray, and they came to me and they said, you know, you're fine, you're great, go home. But we noticed a little fuzzy spot up here in your lung, and you might want to go see your doctor and have that checked out. So I did, as quickly as I could. I got into my family doctor, and he says, yeah, you know, he said, I think there's something there. I'm going to send you to a pulmonologist. Well, that made sense. A pulmonologist is a lung doctor. So he said, I'm going to make an appointment. He made an appointment for me. He says, here's the address, go see him. Okay, so I'm going to go see a lung doctor. So I drove out to the office for the appointment, and I drove up to the address, and I looked up on the wall of the building, and it said Oncology Center. And immediately my heart sank. All the blood just poured out of me as I looked at that sign and thought, cancer? He didn't say anything about cancer. And I went in and I met with the pulmonologist and went through a series of tests. And yeah, I had cancer in the upper right lobe of my lung. And I was going to have surgery. And any of you who have faced a similar thing know how really difficult and traumatic that can be. It involved a tremendous amount of prayer beforehand, and a lot of anxiety and anticipation and fear, downright fear. And so I met with the surgeon, and the surgeon said to me, he said, well, I'm going to tell you about this operation, and how we explained how he cut through my ribs and then opened my ribs apart so you could get in there and take out the upper portion of my lung, which scared the daylights out of me. And I said, is this going to be painful? He says, well, have you ever known anybody who had open heart surgery? And I said, yeah. He said, that's pretty awful, isn't it? And I said, oh, yeah. He said, well, this is worse. And I said, well, thanks a lot for that. And he said, I just want to be honest with you. And so one of the things that I'll just add as a little side note on this, my surgeon was 6'8" and a former basketball player. And he could palm a basketball like most of us can palm a softball or a grapefruit. And it was his hands that were going in there to do that. And I realized next time, if it ever happened again, I wanted a 5'2" female surgeon with really tiny hands to do this. But after the surgery, he was right. The pain was excruciating. I have never experienced anything like that before in my life, and I hope I never experience it again. Days upon days of extreme pain. And I had one of those morphine drips and a little button, Well, I was pushing that thing like it was a video game, trying to get that pain out. But unfortunately, they didn't tell me it only happens every half hour anyway. But still, my thumb got really strong by doing that. But the pain was absolutely excruciating, and Linda can share some of the night experiences she had with me when she stayed with me on how much it hurt. And one night I remember, and I was lying in my room, and I was praying to God, and suddenly I felt the room just full of the presence of God. I felt a peace. I felt a calmness that I've never felt before. Sadly, the pain didn't go away at all. I mean, this was not a good Hollywood movie, but I had that peace and I had that calm, and I knew that everything was going to be all right. And I remember lying there in my room and praying, and I was praying Psalms. Not the Psalms in our Bible. I was writing my own poem. It was as if I was channeling King David in my life. And they were good. I mean, they were really, really, really good. But I can't remember a single